All right, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we are going to be going over putting the pedals in the car. Clutch pedal, brake pedal. Show you how to do the master cylinder. And we will be talking a little bit about the wiring and what we need to cut and what we need to splice together. Now we're going to work on getting the clutch pedal in. So there's quite a bit of bracketry with this one that got to put in. I have to find my fasteners for everything. So a couple things, this way it sits in there. So we've got these two fasteners up top, and then there's two fasteners in the back that go through the firewall to the master cylinder. And then this is our clutch safety switch. So one thing I'm going to do once I get this wired in is I'm going to cut the harness out of the manual car and tie it into the wiring for the park neutral safety switch, or what was the park neutral safety switch. So I'm going to be doing that wiring soon. I'm going to start with taking this battery out, the fender or wheel liner, the lower fender, so that we can make room, because once I get this kind of position, then I got to drill holes for the master cylinder to put that in. So I'm going to get this put in, and then I'll get up a little closer and kind of show you all the details about where the fasteners were, what more had to come apart, and what I had to do to get through the firewall and how I drilled that. So we'll be back in a little while. All right, we got the battery out, lower fender off, also disconnected the ECM battery, got it pulled up out of the way. So I can show you what we're looking at here. One thing I pulled off of the donor car was a template. So I've cut this out of the firewall so I know exactly where everything went and what the hole sizes were. But one cool thing about these is every firewall, regardless if it's auto or manual, is marked. So you can see those three little dots. That's kind of your center hole for everything. I'm going to measure everything just to double check that. You can see it, the one on the left is a little closer to the one on the right. But if you look at the template, it's that way too. The biggest hole's offset to the left compared to that. So gonna try to figure out how to get a drill bit in there. I think my drill I have is not gonna fit, so it's gonna take some working to get that lined up. Don't want to have to remove the brake booster, but that might have to happen. And then when I get a hole saw in there to cut the bigger hole, we'll see from there. Don't think there's enough room underneath the dash to drill from the inside either. So gonna start with some small pilot holes first in the center and see where we can go from there. All right, so our holes are in the firewall. See if I can get up there to where you can see them. Yep. So it's ready to go, everything lines up. However, I did just try to bench bleed the master cylinder, and I don't really like it. It seems like it's kind of got a leak, not really going well. So I'm just going to go ahead and order a new one, just because they are kind of a pain to change. So not going to be able to kind of wrap this up. Had to see, probably be a couple days to get one. But I'm gonna go ahead and try to get the clutch pedal the rest of the way in, so I'll show you when that's in. I can finish up the brakes. Did get the wiring harness cut for clutch starter switch, so get that wired in. A couple other things we got to do with the wiring, so I'm going to keep going on that. I'll get back once I get the pedal in. Let you see how that kind of looks and how it's going to line up. Do a time lapse on this, but you just see the back of my head. There's not a whole lot of room to look at. Once we get over to the wiring, I'll kind of show that again, maybe time lapse running the new wiring. And might have seen I did have to cut some of my own wiring. This is for Things like the for my gauge pods, for the wideband air fuel ratio, along with the trans temp. That's what all this stuff was, and I had it kind of ran through the dash. From when I ran it, I didn't undo the dash, so I ran it through available holes, and because of that I couldn't take the dash out without cutting it. So got all that labeled. We'll have to re-splice everything in. Then we'll be real close to getting the car up in the air and pulling the transmission, doing things like that, which is honestly the easy part of the swap. What I'm doing here and what we've seen so far is by far the most time consuming and hardest thing to do. All right, car has 3 pedals now. We got our clutch, brake, and our gas. So the brake pedal, kind of went over that a little bit, how that goes. It's really just the 1 bolt up top. You can't really get a good view for you. It's in that metal bracket that I showed either in this video or in a video back. But that's all in. The clutch pedal, what you have to do is your hood release mechanism. So this, how you normally pop your hood. There are 2 bolts for that bracket right up here. Try to get in there to where you can see it. They're not easy to see right there. So those 2 bolts, you pull those 2 out and you can pull your hood release latch out of the way, and then your clutch pedal goes in underneath that. So there's 2 holes in the clutch pedal bracket that I showed outside. That's where those go. And then if we go around to the front of the car, before I tightened those 2 clutch pedal bolts down, I did go ahead and install the other 2 fasteners for the master. So you can see those 2 are in there just to hold the alignment. What I ended up doing is on the master, I had one out of the parts car, but just with the effort it takes to get to them and kind of taking a look at it when I tried to bench bleed it, I didn't like it. So for no more than they cost, it's right around 80 bucks. I did go ahead and buy a new master. So I've been waiting a couple days for that to come in. Something I'll show you on this real quick. Get you set up so you can see here. So when you buy a new master, it comes without this plate here. There's a spacer. So I'm going to pull that off of the old master before we install this. And then this goes into the clutch pedal itself. And then we got that little clip that I showed that we got to pop over. And then we'll be done installing the pedals and be able to move on to doing the wiring. So I'm going to get this installed. Then I'll come back, kind of show you what that looks like. Try to show you this clip up on the clutch pedal itself. We'll go from there. All right, master cylinder's in. You can see where that spacer is. The spacer does have a seal on it normally. I went ahead and just put a little bit of RTV around it just to help seal it up, probably keep a little bit of heat and kind of fumes, anything underneath the engine bay from coming through the firewall. Did go ahead and install the hose pipe. Goes from the master to the slave. I'm going to leave that loose right now just so that I can turn everything and move everything the way I need to once I get the car up in the air. The other thing is I did remove the battery tray, gave me a little bit more room to put that hose in. The hose was probably the hardest part of it, getting everything. But on the inside of the car, do have everything hooked up here now. See if I can get up there and show you where it's at. So you can just barely see that screw and the rod coming through the firewall. Then get you a little better from this other side here. There you can see, just barely see the clip hanging onto the clutch pedal, so you can see if I push the clutch now, it's pushing the rod. So that's where that clip has to go once the rod's attached to the clutch pedal. Now the clutch is done though, other than wiring. So as far as the wiring goes, this is that harness from the other car for the clutch safety switch to actuate the starter. So that's going to go in here, which is on the solenoid up to the clutch pedal, which I already checked just to make sure that that works. You can just measure resistance there to make sure it drops from full resistance to zero resistance when you push the clutch pedal, or very close to zero. So I'm going to work on putting that. I'm going to have to extend the pigtails on that, and then we'll come over here and I'll show you which wires need to be cut and where we have to splice everything in. All right, we got all of our wiring done now. So the transmission range selector, park neutral safety switch, that's the normal connector that is here in the auto. Pretty simple. Purple wire and yellow wire are the clutch safety interlock switch. Basically these would make sure the car's in park or neutral before it would allow it to start. With the manual now, you got to push the clutch to start the car. So got these fished through the dash down here. We'll have to tire all the wiring up, make it look nice. The other ones you have to cut, the black and the orange wire have to be cut and connected together. This is what allows the rear hatch to pop, either on the switch in the dash or the one in the door. Normally in the auto, this would only allow you to pop it when it's in park. I believe, not positive, but now with these connected, it will have the potential that you can open it while you're driving down the road. No big deal for me. The other two wires, this pink and green, these will be the backup lights. So I have the harness for the transmission, going to go through this grommet. We'll bring those up through here and connect, and then when the transmission's in reverse, should actuate the reverse lights. So that covers every wire that's in this harness. So they're all got a spot now. Get these two connected once we get the transmission a little further along to where I can get underneath the car and run the wires correctly. But that's it for the wiring. Pretty basic there. There is one additional switch on the clutch pedal for the cutout for the cruise control. I'm not going to go through getting all that connected. You have to run a vacuum line to the cruise control module as well through the firewall, and it's just not worth my time for me. The brake will still be set up to where if you push the brake, the cruise will pop off. But now if you hit the clutch, it won't kill the cruise, which is not great, but I'll live with it. Other than that, that's going to end it off for today. The next video you're going to see is actually pulling the auto transmission out of the car. And then we'll come back with another video after that of cutting the tunnel. So you can see I've already started to prep my cut lines of where I'm planning on cutting. And I'll run a time lapse of how I do that when we get to that point. But that's going to be it for today. Thanks for joining in, and look forward to seeing you back in the next videos.